Hello and welcome to all you digital makers out there. You're in for a special treat today as we're doing a very special live stream in collaboration with Unity, an amazing and powerful game engine. If you haven't already, say hey in the chat and let us know where in the world you are. I'm Mr. C and I'm coming to you live from Cambridge in England. My co-host today is Rebecca Franks from the Raspberry Pi Foundation's Informal Learning team. Hey Beck.
Hey Mr. C, and hi everyone. I'm joining from the West Midlands, so right in the middle of England, and thank you to everyone for joining from all over the world once again for another great Raspberry Pi live stream. Great to see you, Mr. C.
Yeah, great to see you too.
We already have lots of people in the chat early today. It's great to see you here with us and welcome. We have two extra special guests today. Liz, one of our amazing colleagues from the Informal Learning team, is here to join us and talk about the new content we've created to help young people and budding game developers get to grips with this amazing game engine and start creating awesome interactive experiences. We'll also be talking to Thomas Winkley, an evangelist at Unity, who's coming along to talk about what Unity is and how people around the world are using it to make virtual 3D worlds.
That's so cool. I love Unity. It's like such a great platform creating nearly anything. So not just 3D games, but 2D games and virtual reality projects as well. So I'm really looking forward to doing some coding with you later on in the show. We're broadcasting live to YouTube, so all of your comments and questions pop up in front of us during the stream just here. And we love hearing from all of you during the show. So please feel free, jump in, ask questions, chat with one another, or just give us your opinion on something that's happening in the show.
And before we bring on Liz and Thomas to talk about uni, do us a quick favour and just click subscribe. Having you on the team really does make a difference to us getting the word out about what we're doing. So help us to keep making free content that you love just by clicking that little button, or head to rpf.io/sub to get updates on all our new content. We're a community of learners, inventors and creators coming together to change the world through digital making. Subscribe and join the digital making adventure.
Absolutely. So should we bring our guests on now and have a chat with them?
Yeah.
Liz and Thomas, are you there?
Hey, how is everybody?
Hey, awesome, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being with us today. So, Thomas, can you describe for our viewers what Unity really is?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you did a really good job of describing it in the introduction, but it's a game engine, right? A real-time 3D platform that allows you to create worlds, whether you're trying to recreate the world we live in, maybe you're trying to recreate a building in your local city, maybe you want to build a building somewhere and you want to see what it would look like against the skyline, or maybe you're creating a fantasy world that you've come up with for a game or a story that you want to tell. Either way, it helps you generate and create those worlds without having to do as much complicated math as you would if you had to, start from scratch.
Nice, that's dope. So what are some of the most popular games or environments that have been put together from Unity so far?
Oh my goodness. The biggest one that I'm thinking of right now is a game that just came out, I believe this week. It's called Tunic. It's a beautiful game. You're a fox exploring a world. It's a lot like Legend of Zelda, if y'all have ever played the older Legend of Zelda games. Yeah. But the same idea, and then there's games like Ori and the Blind Forest, Cuphead, which is a really incredible game. One of my favorites. I love that classic, like early 40s animation style.
Yeah, depression animation stuff. And they just got a cartoon too, didn't they, that game?
They did, yeah. They absolutely did. It's a lot of fun to watch. Hollow Knight, Monument Valley. There's a ton of stuff that's been made in Unity. And those are all 2D examples, but then there's 3D games like Abe's Odyssey, Soulstorm, and a few others. So,
yeah, wicked. That's so cool. So, Liz, can you talk through some of the ideas behind the Unity path you had when you were putting it together, and some of the things that people will create by the end of the path?
Yeah, sure. So, like Tom touched on, then the 3D was something that we knew we wanted to do. So we wanted to use the Unity 3D. And we wanted to do a path that was a real introduction path as well. So complete beginners to Unity. And we always start by asking people what they want to make. So we go to our young creators and say, what do you want to make with this path? And it was so wide. There were games and interactive stories and animations and so it's like 3D adventure then, right? It's just we've got to cover all of that. So that was kind of our starting point. And then we just looked at what you needed, you need player characters, non-player characters to interact with. You need items, you need scenery to navigate, and all the essentials. And then we were what can we add? What else can we get in there? So animation for sure. Like we've got to have animation in there. Some user interface stuff as well. Like we want a bit of dialogue and things and variables for games and sound effects, like just add a new dimension, particle effects. So we kind of snuck in as much of the extras as well in there, but ultimately it's 3D adventure is like what people make.
That's so cool. I love that. The idea that you like reverse engineered from the project, so you have it break it apart. Let's get you build all the bits and understand how to make your own thing. And then, so what are the main differences between those first 3 projects and the second 3 projects in the path?
So we think of all the paths that we do as like 3, 2, 1 make. So the first 3 are always like where you're introduced to all the new skills that you need for the path. And you go through like the step-by-step instructions, you make like personalized choices as well. And in this path in particular, you make a collectibles game. So they all like combine and build on each other. So at the end of the first 3, you've got like your first full Unity project. And then the next 2, they kind of work together as well. So you practice your skills, but you do loads of design choices and things in there as well. Add your own themes, build your own worlds, like add quests of all different kinds. And then the last one is that's where you invent your 3D adventure. So you meet a brief. So like using all the skills you've got so far and just like bringing your complete imagination to it and making that thing that you wanted to make.
It is super awesome because I did the Unity path. That was my Christmas present from Liz and Tracy, who designed it just before Christmas, ready for me to test out, and I absolutely loved it. And by the time I got to the end of the 3rd project, I was like, I know what I've got to do now. I want to make this game and I want to do this thing. And I kept trying to try all these things and I was working through, and it was just so exciting to realize that I was making this 3D game and it actually worked and it felt so real. Like, I'm an absolute Mario fan, and it felt like very much like a Mario 3D world that I was creating, or Mario Kart or something like that. And it was just a brilliant path to follow.
Awesome, and that's cool.
I think with paths, it's really important to have like beautiful, fun, exciting assets to work with when you're learning, right? Because when you're like, for me, I do a lot of programming, and so a lot of the stuff I work on isn't as pretty because I'm just moving cubes and spheres and blocks around until an artist comes through and helps me out, right? So it's really amazing that you're providing that art and engine and all the things you need there, so that not only can you make something cool, but you can make something cool that looks good and is fun to look at as well. I love the way that came out.
Thank you, man. That's super cool. So could you like talk quickly about some of your favorite creations from Unity then? Like, what are some of your favorite pieces that you've seen people produce with this tool?
Yeah, I mean, Tunic, I'll talk about it a lot, and I'll probably be yelling about it on social media a lot. It's just a beautiful game, specifically for us older generation folks like myself that are used to the classics, because it's a really, really good, love note to those games. Hollow Knight's another one that I'm absolutely in love with. The music is incredible. The visuals are gorgeous. The mechanics are really, really wonderful. And one that maybe doesn't get as much attention is Baymax Dreams. So it's a real-time animation. It's a film made completely in Unity from start to finish. Wow. Which is a really, really cool thing. So if you haven't watched it, Baymax Dreams is wonderful. It's done in a bunch of shorts, but definitely another one of my favorites to go back and check out every once in a while.
That's so cool. So it's just an animation from start to finish. Someone's just rigged the whole thing in Unity and clicked go and recorded it, and you can watch the whole thing.
Yeah, and Unity has all the tools to do that, right? We have a recording tool. We have a camera system that will follow objects. You can put it on a dolly. You can move things around. Of course, we have the real-time lighting and all the other stuff you would need to make a complete animated feature. And so the team did that with Baymax, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, Liz, have you got some stuff that you'd like to share that you've made in Unity?
Yeah. I'll share my screen now. This is one, like, it just kind of, when your project just kind of gives you the feels. Like, I was trying to think of what I wanted to show, and this one is really funny because, like Tom said, working with the assets was one of the key things. We wanted to have these amazing models and materials and textures for people to use. And we got right near the end of the path, and we were like, oh my goodness, we told people like you can make things with 3D shapes as well, and scenery and characters and everything. And we haven't even got a project that does that. And it started off being like, we just need a project so that we can take pictures, like to put in the instructions, and that's it. So I created like this world and made the characters. They're just like capsule characters, and they look a bit like punk ducks, really. I'm not really sure what they are. But I had loads of fun doing it and like creating the dialogue, and everything's like out of 3D shapes. So the stairs and there's like walls that are hidden and pop up and stuff, and characters appear. And it was one of those where like I was working on it, and then my husband came in and he was like, "What time did you finish work, Liz?" And it was like pitch black, and I was just like, it was full on nighttime, and I was like, I got so carried away with it. So I think it just gives me the feel. So that one.
That's how you know you've caught the bug. That's how it starts. Yeah.
That's so cool. So when you put those things together, you had some ideas from young people as well on like some of the projects that you made, right, Liz? You had Crossing Rat, I think was my favourite one that we did a little while ago.
Yeah,
that was an idea from a young person, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got some to share. If I share my screen again. So Crossy Rat was a really good one because when we finished the path, and then actually the first young creator that made something, Ruben, submitted Crossy Rat. And it was really good because it took all the models and used them in a completely different way. So that was how we knew that the 3D adventure, it was like people had made their own thing with it. And like this one, this is Scramble Trail. This is the one that Rebecca talked about before, and using the models just in the way that she has. And I just like, I want to beat my time. Like I get so addicted to playing this and going around the track and things. So it's really, really good. And also on, we have coolest projects like this global showcase. So there's a couple of projects on there as well that when we were doing research into this, we had a look at. So I think a team in, like shout out to a team in Dublin, a Coda Dojo who'd made Mini Golf Madness, and taken like a Scratch game and then made their own Unity game from it. And they all had like different roles and stuff. So there's a video where they walk through like how they'd gone out of the comfort zone and things that they would like to do if they had more time and stuff. And also this Ghost as well by Erin. Again, like go and watch the video. It's really good the way Erin talks about coming up with the characters and thinking about how they were all going to interact and everything. It's like we're so lucky to work with this like global community of young creators that are just amazing, and we love seeing the projects. They're so good.
That's super cool. So Thomas, have you made anything with Unity? I know you work there, but have you used the tool? Do you make stuff?
So, until recently, I would say that mostly I was a prototyper. Like I would just come up with ideas and kind of push stuff around. But I do have a couple things to share that I've worked on recently. So the first thing that I'd want to pull up is actually a project that when I first jumped into learning Unity, let me hide this bar so you don't have to see that. It's called Swords and Shovels, and it was actually built as a learning game to build like a dungeon crawler kind of simulation. And so I worked on it with a big team. I helped manage the project. I wrote some of the code. But then, we had incredible artists, Joshua Kinney, who's now at Unity, and a bunch of other people. And really, the whole idea was to do exactly what you do with the Raspberry Pi content, right? Is deconstruct the game and teach it in chunks. So this is one that I really had a good time working on. And it's probably the best looking project I've worked on. And this is just a prototype, so there's no movement interactions right now. But as you can see, we've got these beautiful torches. There's fog. If I was able to send sound out to you, you could actually hear like the cave environment and water droplets. So this was a really fun one that I got to work on a few years ago. The other one, and I think I can just Alt-Tab over to my other Unity project, we run a game jam for students that go through the Create with Code path on Learn, learn.unity.com. And so we have people like me hanging out inside the Discord to help folks that get stuck while they're coding, right? And so I was working all weekend supporting people. So I jumped up on Twitch, put together a stream, and actually just coded for 8 straight hours building kind of a game prototype. And that way, if folks had problems or questions, they could jump into chat or they could ping me on Discord. So this is called Don't Get Caught. And this is about as far as I got. So the whole premise is you're this young woman. You wake up on an alien planet. The camera is always moving, and you want to not get hit by these aliens right here. So kind of got done dialing in like the movement and the jumps. Still needs some polish, but it does have the life system working. And it's just a fun thing that I built and worked on kind of while I was helping others get their stuff built. And you don't want to get touched by the aliens. That's the goal. Oh, I got touched twice. If I get touched again, I lost. So that was just a small prototype I put together. I really love building 2D games and kind of messing with that. And so it was just something fun to prototype and come up with some cool ideas.
It's really nice, man. I love those art styles too. Like very, very like wildly different art styles and quite different play styles and things, all in the same tool. You know, that breadth is really, really nice. So, why do you think it's important for young people to pick up the tool and to learn how to drive Unity?
Yeah, I mean, it's these types of skills are really the future of what we're building out, as a society, First of all, software development is software development is software development. Whether you write a system to make a game happen, or you're writing code to program robots, or you're building software for a large company that sells something, the skills you learn building code are all transferable. You can move them around. You can do them with other things. I just happen to think making video games is way more fun. So you might as well have fun while you're learning the stuff, right? And it's also becoming applicable everywhere. I mean, virtual reality's got a huge hold and it's growing and exploding. There's so much that can be done with virtual reality to teach each other about what we are, who we are, how we can learn to understand each other better. But then there's also stuff that we can do to keep us safe, safety training. Instead of having people go learn to climb giant light poles in the real world, we can put them in virtual reality and help them be safe in a simulation where they won't get hurt. So there's just so much opportunity here that it's fun. And there's a lot of really amazing stuff you can do with it in the future, and it's going to keep expanding and growing.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I've seen some of those things, like first responder training as well, like ambulance driver training things in virtual reality. Like no one has to be hurt. You can be in a safe place. We can rewind, look at the whole situation down to the millisecond, see how you responded. It's amazing. You can dissect the training. Incredible tool. So, Liz, where would you send learners to learn more about it if they wanted to, if they've completed the path and things like that?
Yeah, so I guess a little bit that's where the make comes in. So the 3-2-1 make, and then the make is like you've got all these amazing skills now, and actually like it's not just you do the path and then that's it. It's something where you keep going back, you keep changing, you keep making different design decisions and going different routes and stuff. So it's like that's your arsenal there now. Like that, you've got that forever. You've got the asset pack. You can do whatever you want with it. In terms of like extra stuff, so coolest projects for sure. Like enter coolest projects. You get so much inspiration, and you inspire other people as well. Any Unity projects, like really, it's like global showcase. It's so good, and you just to feel part of that big community and see what everyone else is making is just like definitely hit that up. On the last page of the last project in the path, we have links off to the Unity pathways as well. So there are some amazing things that Tom talks about on that on the platform as well. But we definitely recommend the junior programmer and the creative core pathways as being really good next steps to go to. And amazing resources. So that like just keep making, basically make as much as you can.
Awesome, learn by doing. That's super cool. I mean, because I've made a couple of my own projects in Unity, but they've tended to be first-person games and interactive.
Oh, cool.
So where you see through the perspective of the character and you look at the world through the screen. So the new content on the project site was fresh for me because it was a way to do a 3D world, but in third-person perspective, right? So you can see the character running around the world. That's what we're going to do today, right, Beck?
Yeah, definitely. Should we get going?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for coming on today, Liz.
Cool, no problem.
Our morning meeting.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, see you later. See you tomorrow. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.
So, Beck, share your screen with us. Let's have a look.
There we go. Am I sharing? Has the magic happened?
The magic worked.
Awesome. Right. So I'm going to get going. Now, I have set this up based on the instructions that are on the project site. So I've got to a point where I've installed it and everything's set up and I'm ready to go because nobody wants to sit and watch me do that on a live stream. So I'm just ready to start creating and get going. So when you get into Unity, you'll see you've got this bit in the middle, and at the moment this is the 3D world, and it's very empty at the moment. There's nothing in it at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to it something for objects to stand on, and we can use a plane for that. So I'm going to go to game object, 3D object, and then I'm going to go down to plane, and there it is, and it's looking very plain at the moment. Boom. No. Okay. Yeah, that's not a good one, is it? Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to materials and I'm going to create a new material for the plane. So I'm going to right click, create, and I'm going to go to materials and I'm going to call my material ground because that's going to be the material that I use on the ground. And at the moment it's looking quite plain, but I can change that. I can give it a funky color. So if I go up here to the albedo part, I can click on, I'm going to go for green.
Nice.
This
Good,
funky
good choice.
green color. And you can see what it's going to look like down here. And then all I have to do is just drag it on, and there is my ground that I've got going. Now I want to start adding an actual object to my 3D world. So I'm going to go to game object again, and this is going to be a wall, but obviously we haven't got a wall here as an object, but we have got a cube that we can use, and then we can change the dimensions of that to turn it into a wall. And when we first put it in, it kind of puts it in the center like this.
Yeah, it's like chopped in half.
Yeah, so if you look, it's kind of halfway through that plane. So I can use these arrows to drag it up to where I want it to be, or I can just type over here where we've got position in the transform and put specific values in there. But in order to draw an actual wall, I'm going to look at the project site, because the project site tells me exactly what dimensions to use, so I don't have to come up with them myself. I can go, it's just 1 and then 3, and then down here we've got 5, 2 and 0.25, and I'm just going to zoom out, and there we go, magic. I've got a wall.
And I want to add, what Rebecca's doing, that's actually pretty common in like a studio where you'll have specifications and they'll say the wall needs to be this big. And I also wanted to add a point of, that transform that you saw Rebecca editing, that's every game object has one, and that's how Unity knows how big it is, where it exists, and how it's rotated inside the world. So the transform is great to know how to use because everything has one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it. So I've got my wall, and again, this wall is looking a bit boring, so I'm going to add a material to it now. So I'm going to go over here. I want to make a new one, so I'm going to go right click, create, and then I'm going to go to material, and then I'm going to call it wall, because this is going to be my wall material. And again, I've just got this plain one, so I'm going to go for this pinky purpley color.
Nice. High contrast.
I like to go for something a bit wild. I think it's just when you just pick some random thing to make it cool, and you can just change it as you go along. But at the moment it's just pinky purple. I want to give it a texture now, so I can click on this little circle here and I can find my textures. And what that's done is it's a brick wall texture. So you can see down here it's got that pinky purpley color, and it's got the brick wall texture, and I can drag it onto the plane, or I can drag it onto my wall. And what does that remind you of, Mark? Mr. C?
It's like the skateboard I had when I was 9.
Yeah,
I think it had Ninja Turtles on it. It's like that 90s green and purple. The Joker's hideout, maybe. I love it.
Yes, definitely. So
one question about that material you've just dropped. So if you now go to your purple material in the folder, the assets folder, if you change it on the right in those things there, does it change automatically in the game, or do you have to tell it I want to change it here and here and here and here? Or is it everywhere that material is? Yeah, mess with it.
Shall we try it? Let's see.
Yeah, mess with it.
There we go. Right, so if I change it, I'm changing the material. So anything that's got that material is going to change with it. I'm going to keep it that pinky purpley colour because I do like that colour.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, put it back.
Right, so I've got one wall, and now I want to add another wall. I'm just going to give it a better name than cube, because it's not a cube anymore. So I'm just going to rename it to wall. And then I want another wall. So I could do all of that again, or I could just use the duplicate option. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to duplicate. And it looks like I haven't done anything. If you look at my 3D world, what do you think's happened?
You've duplicated the piece onto itself, right? Like it's in exactly the same place, exactly the same size.
That's right. So I can use these arrows to just drag it out the way to do it sort of freehand style, or I could go over here, and I do actually want to rotate it. So I'm going to go to rotation, and I'm going to change it to 90 because I want it at this angle. And now I've got to a point where my object's a little bit too big for the ground that I've created with this plane. And if we go over to scale at the moment, it's set to 1 by 1. And that is equivalent to, in the real world, if it would be 10 meters. But I want to make it 40 meters. So I'm going to change this to a 4 and this to a 4. And now it's 40 meters wide. And I've got a lot more space for my character to move around when I drop my character in. So I'm going to drop my character in now. So Unity were awesome and gave us these assets that we could use. And for our characters that we've got a cat and we've got a raccoon. So which one shall I choose, Mr. C?
I always like the raccoon. I think I like his contrasty stripes.
I was hoping that's what you were going to say. I was very worried.
Awesome.
Right, so I'm going to drop the raccoon in. So I've just dragged it in. And I want the raccoon to be right in the center. So I'm going to actually type 0, 0, 0 in my positions. And then that puts the raccoon right in the center. And if I just click on it and press the F key, then I zoom right into the raccoon. Is there anything weird about the raccoon that you've spotted?
Yeah, he's expressing dominance. So he's doing a T-pose and he's floating in the air. Exactly, that's the one. Tom's got it.
Yeah, so it's got a T-pose. So can you tell us about the T-pose, Tom?
Yeah, so this is a pretty standard default state that a model will be in before it's animated and before it's rigged. Rigging means to put bones into the model, right? And so once that's done, they'll stand in this T-pose as kind of their default state before it's added animations and movement. So that's what a T-pose is.
That's super cool. So the meme obviously comes from a game that's bugged out, and then like one of the models has got into T-pose inside the game, and someone's gone, oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we've got a T-pose, but also there's something else odd with this. You've got a construction hat, you've got a bow tie, you've got a party hat. So there's all these different. If you've used Scratch before, they're a little bit like having all the costumes at once on your Scratch sprites.
I just thought he was an undercover wizard. I was like,
yeah. So if we go over here, you can see all of those things that are attached to it. And if we wanted to just keep the construction gear on, then I can just select the party hat one and I can go over here and I can just uncheck it. And then you can use code later on to kind of switch costumes if you like, to switch those ticks on and off if you wanted to change the costume into something else. Also want to change raccoon to player, because that is going to be my main player. So I'm kind of ready to go with that. What I wanted to show you is just the camera here. So if I click on camera and then I just drag, you saw this with Tom's demonstration earlier, we've got this other view that we can look at, which is the game view. So at the moment, the camera is behind the raccoon, just looking at the raccoon looking at a wall at the moment. And this is what the player will see when they're playing, and the camera's just static at the moment. We will look at that and change that shortly, but that's the view we can see at the moment. You'll see this starting to come alive a little bit in a minute. So what we're going to do next is we are going to add a component. So I'm going to go to the raccoon. I'm going to go to add component. I'm going to add character controller. And a character controller allows you to do something called simple move. And we also set up a collider. Now, because I've used this funky green color, you can't see the collider very well around it. So I'm going to use Mr. C's trick and just go to my materials and just change the ground color a little bit so that you can see it. Go for something a little bit darker. There we go. So this is the collider. And this stops the raccoon from walking into other objects like that wall. So when you create a 3D object, it'll automatically have a collider set to it, but this one doesn't. So we have to add it on. And the collider settings, again, I'm going to go to the handy project site and it'll tell me exactly what I've got to put here. So 0.5 here and 1 here. And this just makes it a little bit more realistic movement that we've got. So I've set that up, and now I'm going to start doing a little bit of coding. And what language is it?
C#.
It is C#. So we're going to do some C# coding.
That's cool. So just while you're typing in there, but that collider that we've got around the raccoon now, that determines in the world, like it will bump into other colliders, and that it works out where it is in the world, right? Like, so is that the hitbox for the character then, Tom? Is that what you referred to as the hitbox?
Yeah, you could absolutely call it a hitbox. You could also call it a hurt box as well. Oh, no.
Uh-oh. That's nice, isn't it?
That's what happens.
Thank you. That was great.
So you're saying about hitbox and hurtbox, man. Are they the same thing?
So I guess that's a fighting game term, so probably not as much. But yeah, you're exactly right. It's referred to very commonly as a hitbox, where that hitbox is going to hit against another hitbox, right, and have those interactions happen. And then there's other objects that you can add that'll tell you whether or not you should collide, but also should physics affect you, right? Should you bounce away or should you ricochet, things like that.
That's cool. So you could then have like walls that were bouncy and walls that were sticky and all that sort of stuff inside your game. That's super cool. I love that idea.
Absolutely.
That's super cool.
You know, there's a game that's built in Unity that takes a lot of advantage of that. It's called Fall Guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that uses a lot of those physics simulation and physics puzzles, right? So
yeah, that's wicked. Oh, very cool, man. And with 2D, is it the same sort of thing with the colliders?
it is, but it's a different system. So Unity actually has a 3D physics system and a 2D physics system. So you have to use the 2D one for 2D and the 3D for 3D, but it's the same principles, the same ideas. Yep.
Interesting, man. And so
have I got back to where I was? Is that about where I was?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where we left off. Yeah.
Okay, so what I've got here, I've got my raccoon selected, and what I just did is I actually created a script, but it has it there now. So because I'm quite new to Unity, I don't know how to add that player controller back over here. Can you help me with that?
I can. So actually, if you left click on that script and just drag it onto the object, and you can release it, and it'll add it for you. Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, so there we go. So we're back to where we were before. And if I click on that, you can see on the right-hand side, this is kind of like default code that is already in there when you go to set up your code. And what you can see it here, but also if you set it up beforehand, you've set up your linking idle to work in. I use Visual Studio. Then you should be able to double click on it so that you can actually edit your code. So it's just going to take a little while. There we go. So that code that you just saw on the right hand side is now here on my screen, and I can actually start editing this code. And Tom, could you explain what's the difference between start and update on here?
Sure. So these are methods that are provided by the model behavior class, but they are things that happen at certain points in time in your game. So start happens when the object comes to life, when it starts, right? So if the object is in the game at the start of the game, it'll do it then. If the object gets created during the game, it's when it's created. And then update is actually a repeating method that goes off every single frame. So every game has frames, right? Like you have a frame rate. So if the game frame rate is 60 frames per second, the update method is called 60 times per second. But that will happen every frame. Update will essentially tick, is what it's kind of a tick method.
And that's why you want a mental GPU for good games, right? Because the amount of processing it would require to handle all of these objects
right
at like 60 frames a second or whatever it is you're running your game, man.
And they have to render the picture within milliseconds, right? If you divide I'm not good at math, but if you divide a second into 60, it's a batch of milliseconds. It only has that much time to get that work done.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm going to put my bit of code, which I've got from the project site, into the update part, because this is all to do with movement. Cool. So this is going to allow me to move the character forward and backwards. So I've put my code in from the project site. I click save, and then I go back into Unity. And for some folks, when they use it, this will automatically update, but I have to go in and I click reset, and now it updates for me. So you can see that the code has been pulled through into Unity. Sometimes you get a little bit of a delay when you do it. So now when I press play, I should be able to move it forward with I use arrow keys. I don't use the WASD things. I don't know why. I've never got used to those. I use the arrow keys. And now, because I've got that collider set up, I am bashing into the wall. If I hadn't set that collider up, then I would have gone through the wall. So I'm just going forward and backwards at the moment. So what I want to do is to add some more code in so that I can rotate as well, using the left and right arrows. And what are the other ones for left and right? The keys. A
and D.
Okay. I just find the arrows so much easier. So there's my code for rotating. I click save. I go back. I press reset.
It binds to both sets, though, doesn't it? Arrows and game controls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it, because if you're comfortable with arrows, you can use arrows, and if you like the WASD things, then you can do that. So now I can spin around, and I can move forwards and backwards. So I'm getting some movement in my 3D world with my character now. but it's a little bit slow. So what I'm going to do is going to introduce some variables in there so that I can change the speed and make it a little bit faster. So I introduce variables up here. And you see I've got two variables. One's called move speed and the other one's called rotate speed. And I'm going to use these in my code down below. I'm going to multiply by them. So you'll see the code change when I paste it in. So I'm going to paste it over this one, and you'll just see this part. You'll see a multiply at the end. So it's going to multiply it by rotate speed. And the same thing's going to happen down here. You'll see the multiply pop in. And now it's going to multiply it by, just realised I've done that. That's why Visual Studio is so great for helping you with code. If you do something slightly wrong, it will tell you very quickly, which is really, really handy. So I click save, go back in, reset, it's pulled it through, and it should go a little bit faster because it's multiplying it by those values now. So you can see it is going
Much
a
better.
little bit faster, like so.
Super cool.
So what I want to do now is, at the moment, we're still in this T pose. So we're going to add in some animations to make this look even more exciting than it is now. And again, Unity have provided some of these for us. So we've got some animators here, and we've got one called idle walk. So that's going to have an animation for when it's idle, so standing still, and when it's walking as well. So if I just click on the raccoon, I can drag idle walk up here. And when I press play, it will do the idle animation straight away. So there's our cool little stood still animation, which I absolutely love. The little blinking going on, the little foot moves, which is fantastic. But when I go backwards and forwards, there's no animation because we need a bit of code to tell it to switch to that other animation. So I can go back to my code, and I can, again, from the project site, get the code that I need. And this is going to change the animation to the walking animation.
Oh, it detects a forward input. That's cool.
Yeah, that's right. So, and this is my favorite animation. When you start doing this and you start walking quite far around the 3D world and you watch the little animation go backwards and forwards.
Oh, that's so good.
It's like the head's like too big for its body, and it like flips around, which is a really cool animation, like that. Can you see it flipping around? So it's a very cool one. But you've probably noticed that I'm moving around, but I can go off screen, and now I've lost. If I'm the player, I've lost the raccoon now. I don't know where it is. So this is where we come back to what we're talking about with the camera. So at the moment, the camera is right at the top of the hierarchy, and it's just there looking at that one spot. But if I drag it so that it's underneath, it becomes a child. Oh, have I done that right? I feel like I just did that wrong.
Do you want it to be just attached to the player itself rather than Yeah,
I'm going to just pull it out again. Yeah, that's done it. Okay, so now it becomes a child object of the player. So it should, hopefully, if I dragged it in the right place, yeah, I did. So now it's following the player. But when I go behind the wall, I've lost the character again, which is very, very frustrating. This happens every so often in games where you get lost and you're like, well, where's my character gone? And it's because your camera angle isn't quite right for you to be able to see around it. So what I can actually do is I can change the position of the camera, so the way it's looking at it. And again, projects, Liz and Tracy have done a great job of telling me all the settings that I need. So I'm going to make sure the camera is definitely selected. There we go. And I'm going to change the position to 3, and the rotation is going to be 10. So now it's a little bit higher and angled down. So now it shouldn't get lost for too long when it goes behind a wall. You can see me sort of popping. You can see the head sort of pop in there, and you glide over the walls now. So it's much harder to lose your character at this point because the camera angle is much better. And that is explore one of the path, but you do have this opportunity to add in your own flair to it. So if you wanted extra walls, you could just duplicate them and do walls, just like that maze game that Liz showed you as her example. That's all just based on walls that have been rotated and turned into a maze. So you can actually even make a bit of a maze as you go along and get your characters to go through that maze. Or you could add in other objects. So you could do a sphere and use your arrows to move it along. And then I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to add a material. I'm going to choose one of the ones that's already here. So I'm going to go with the grass one, I think. So I'm going to make a little grass hill so that when I play, you should be able to see the character going up the hill. So you can already start seeing, oh, actually I could start making a pretty cool 3D world on this plane just with those skills. Awesome. From that, one explore project at the beginning, and that's everything in explore one.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's pretty incredible.
So cool. I mean, in nearly no time at all, you've got like a full 3D world complete with a good character. He's animated, he's running around doing all this sort of cool stuff. That's wicked.
Yep.
So cool.
And you have it all built, and now you can take that and just expand upon it, right, and build more. And an important thing when building a game is finding the fun. So all you have to do is build something small like that, and if that small thing is fun, you can build more and build more and build more, right, and keep scaling up.
Absolutely, that's super cool, man. I mean, it's not a full game yet, but it's like a place to start from, as you say, and you work through the rest of the path. I guess you'll build skills, you'll add quests, like there's loot pickups, power-ups, all these things, and then at the end of it, you have a massive 3D game that, as Liz was saying before, could be a really coolest projects entry.
Yep.
All right, awesome. That's amazing. Thanks for coming on today, Thomas. It was really great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me stay and see the demo. I was really excited to see y'all work through everything and talk through it. So it was an honor to be here. I had a blast. I honestly hope I get to come back again.
Yeah, man, we'd love to have you back sometime. It was really cool to have your input on the coding part, actually, to like be able to jump in and help us drag scripts across and like talk to us about a few bits that we didn't know before. It was really great, man. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. And it was so great to see so many of you watching today as well. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Thomas and to Liz for coming on to chat with us about Unity. It's been really, really great.
Absolutely. Catch you later, Tom. We'll see you again soon,
Bye,
mate.
Tom.
Bye.
That's all we have time for this week, everybody, I'm afraid. But if you're making something awesome, then why not enter it into coolest projects? So it's an open showcase for young people to make amazing things and share them with other young people around the globe. And before we leave you, once again, please make sure to subscribe so you're the first to be in the know and get all the updates on the other great content on our channel as it comes out. We're all about supporting young makers and educators around the world, so don't miss out. Thank you all for being here for the Raspberry Pi Foundation special Unity live stream. Hopefully we'll catch you again soon for more amazing digital making. Until then, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye, mate.
Bye.
Bye.